This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of bringing a fellow New Yorker and lifelong health advocate and evangelist and Halo ambassador, Nancy Trent, to the podcast. She is going to give us a crash course on the new age of PR, talk about how the media mixes have changed, but how getting your message across to consumers is the most important and authentic way to build your business. Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Pete.
Awesome. So you have the same birthday as our blessed executive producer, Dave Ganelin. So we will hold you in the highest astrological form of order. You've been a New Yorker your entire life and been dedicated to helping people build business in the fitness industry. Back in the day that people might remember, Reebok and the Step was probably one of the most important movements, the industry has seen. So give us a quick background on, what brought you to the space, what's kept you in the sector, and then we're going to talk about some of the things that you give people guidance on, get them to the next level, and then some of the articles that you're going to publish for us.
Yeah. Well, when people ask me how I got into this, I could start when I was a kid. My dad was a very, very early health maniac, and I think that's what created the passion. And I could go into that for hours. But probably what people would be more interested in is why I started the first wellness PR firm. And trust me, 30 years ago, wellness wasn't a thing. It wasn't even a word. So when I said healthy products, people just assumed I lived on granola and I didn't shave under my arms or my legs. That's what people thought was health, which is really, really crazy. And the reason I got into it was as an incentive for a PR firm that I was working for. They gave me a pharmaceutical account. And in the first meeting, in the get to know you meeting, it was revealed that the product really didn't do anything. And even worse than that, it had side effects. And when I said to my boss, what are we doing? He said to me, hey, listen, we don't get to pick our clients. And I'm like, I can't talk. I'm not going to represent something that isn't good for people and has side effects. And 2 days later, I started my own PR firm.
Gotcha. So, how did you get involved with Reebok originally? Did they come to you? Did you find them as you were looking for more efficacy in your client selection?
It's interesting you ask. The day after I started my own PR firm, there was a market crash. And so there were two gyms that I know of in New York City. One of them was Molly Fox Fitness and the other was Jeff Martin. And I was going to Molly Fox and having plenty of time to work out. And very early on in the history of our agency, I said to her, wow, this is amazing. I wish we could get more people to exercise. And by noon that day, I had a signed contract, and the rest is history. And we worked for the Reebok Step. And at that time, getting into the women's magazines, getting into the national TV shows was very difficult because they weren't writing about wellness. So what we had to do, which is what you always have to do in PR, is figure out how you can make this message of the benefits of exercising with a Reebok Step fit into what people were talking about.
Well, let me ask you a question because, the term PR and, SEO optimization and, content that you're going to put on TikTok or, Instagram, what have you. I feel like, there's maybe a loss for understanding, like we need a PR agency to basically drive our brand maybe into traditional and non-traditional or all distribution channels. So how do you kind of answer the question of, how do I spend my money as a client and what am I getting, and what's the difference between advertising and PR, or is there not a difference? Because I think you got to unravel that.
Really complicated. Well, the difference between advertising and PR, we can answer that with the 3 Bs. So we all think we know what advertising is, and you pay for that. When you see an ad in a magazine, or you see a digital ad, or you see an ad on television, you know that people pay for it. when you're reading something in an article, or you're seeing somebody interviewed on Good Morning America or Entertainment Tonight, or you don't know that there are people who are trying to make that happen. Nobody's getting paid. You're not supposed to be getting paid, and that is one of the problems that's going on today with media. So because you're not paying for advertising, publicity is a lot cheaper. I can try and get the same client who couldn't even afford an ad in on Good Morning America. On Good Morning America, the Today Show, Entertainment Tonight, the Women's Magazine, Sports Illustrated, Wall Street Journal. We can get them in lots of different places. So PR costs a lot less. So the first B is budget. The second thing is, we know when we see an ad that it is an ad. And people are more skeptical about ads than ever before. So if you see an ad, unless you're a brand that everybody already knows, so the ad is just, increasing awareness, getting it into people's heads more. That's one thing. But if they don't know what it is, it's very, very hard.
Mm-hmm.
So the first B is budget. The second is believability, that you believe what you're reading. And the third thing is buzz. Once people start seeing the articles coming out and the celebrities and the athletes and everybody talking about the brand, everybody wants to be involved with you. So there's more opportunities for all kinds of things, all kinds of collaborations.
So one of the things that, everybody wants an ROI on everything, right? Well, what's my return on investment on this, corporate wellness program? What's my return on investment in my sales engine, or what have you?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that a lot of what you've combated over the last 30 years is like, look, I can't quantify everything, but I can quantify, that there's, a certain amount of metrics, or like a certain amount of sales that you're generating. I can't just point to it, but I can just point at it.
Great question, Pete. So what we have to do is, when it's not that, oh, look, the article came out, the TV segment came out. It's what you do with it. We use the national publicity to get more local publicity. We use the traditional media to give more credibility to social media. You use the numbers to get that. So you have to have a very, very clear plan. But, when you think about it, it's not the article. It's how you use the article and reuse the article. And the truth is, you could use them forever. I mean, the fact that I was in Vogue, I talk about that all the time. And that was, a while ago. So there you have it.
Yeah, it's funny. On my LinkedIn feed today, I had a 6-minute video of Steve Jobs talking about the Think Differently, or Think Different campaign, where he had, these are all the icons that, didn't have access to an Apple, but if Apple was around when they were around, they would have been an Apple, user, from Gandhi to Einstein to, so some of the think, MLK, things like that. And he said,
Steve, if I'm not mistaken, it was Steve Jobs who said that any brand can get well known by people. If the product is really, really good, people are going to find it. But it may take 30 years. And who in this day and age has 30 years for anything?
As you take a look at brands in the fitness industry, and the broader Halo sector, there's definitely a call to action. And if you see like a Planet Fitness ad, that's all about, price, and it's all about like, this offer expires at the end of the month. When you see ads related to, supplements and gummy bears, you say, okay, okay, this is going to like package up what you need as quickly as possible, and maybe in the most cost effective way. So what strategies do you help people deploy? Or when you have someone come in and say, look, this is what I think you mean to say and what you should be saying, or maybe like change the narrative?
Yeah. Well, it isn't really, you have to know what you want to say, but more important, you have to understand what people can hear. Like, you may want to say a lot of things, but if people can't hear it, forget it. It doesn't. You really have to understand what people can hear and come up with a way that they can say it. And different types of consumers have different ways of accepting information. So you have to feel, you have to know who your target is and be really clear, and also be able to test things, because and that's one of the benefits of PR. If you have an ad campaign, it's very expensive to test things. When you have a PR campaign, you could that's one of the great things. You could test it and get a very quick answer to how people are responding and move. And then you have to have the humility, like it isn't working. Well, don't blame it on the other people. Think about what you have to do to change what it is that you're saying.
Gotcha. And is there, I'm going a little bit off script here, but is there a percentage of an ad budget that should be devoted towards a PR budget? And do you have to educate people on what mix that is?
Yeah, I think a PR budget should precede an ad budget, because PR is far less expensive than advertising. And PR will give you the credibility and reputation that any brand needs. It's really, really important. And then it depends on what kind of marketing budget you have, because for lots of different reasons, there's lots of different variables. But in our category specifically, credibility is really important. People have to be able to trust it. This is our health. We use the wrong equipment, we could hurt ourselves. We use the wrong supplement, we could make ourselves sick. We've got to make sure that there's credibility. People really care about that. And you don't get that from advertising. You get that
Gotcha.
from PR. And I have to tell you another little secret that people are not privy to yet, is that there's all kinds of research that shows that if you include a snippet from an article, it increases the engagement to the ad by 1,000%.
Hmm.
So you may be able to reevaluate your marketing budget by using more of the publicity in your advertising to make your business far more profitable.
Got it. Well, one of the questions we wanted to talk to you about is, whether having a PR agency on, retainer for, any kind of crisis management or, damage to their reputation. We've seen several things happen, since COVID. There was a big, tweet by the founder of CrossFit that caused, a significant amount of chaos. There was F45 that went public, and then now is trading as a penny stock. Exponentials had some SEC issues that have just sprung up. A couple of groups have gone through bankruptcy. So how do you kind of get ahead of that? And when people call you and they've already been in the news, is that like a day too late, or is that, look, I'm here to kind of try and help you put out a fire?
We're always there to try and put out a fire, and generally it is a day too late, because look, I'm a Girl Scout, and I believe in being prepared. You should not be thinking about dealing with crisis management when the crisis happens. You should have some kind of program in place just in case. And the way that you do that is you build up goodwill, and then you try to utilize that when you've made a mistake. So be prepared, because it could happen at any time, and it could be your fault, may not be your fault, but you need to be prepared. And that's in every level of the marketing.
Is it just talk about like Fortune 1000 companies? Do they have, PR firms like on the ready for, like plan B? How does that work? Obviously we don't in this industry.
I'm sure that they do, and if they don't, they should. And there may be examples of why they learned just a moment too late, why they should have. Mistakes won't happen. Mistakes happen, but they won't happen as readily, and you may not be as unprepared if you're prepared ahead of time.
Gotcha. So what are some, maybe without naming names, what are some of the best success stories that you could give to us here, whether it's, coming out of COVID or whether it's current, where someone's building a new business and they basically said, hey, I'm going to go your way and I'm not going to go, with trying to build a brand for, 20 to $40 million that's going to take to, get people to know who I am.
It shouldn't take, it shouldn't take 20 to $40 million to build a brand, but we have you'd be hard pressed to name a mainstream wellness trend that we haven't had our fingers in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I think about one of the first things we did PR for the Juice Man juicer. At that time, nobody was juicing. It was creepy. In fact, the way that we got people to actually talk about juicing was the doctors on the East Coast would tell their patients, hey, listen, the medicine isn't working, but we heard about some really crazy nuts in California that are getting good results with juicing. Maybe you should try it. And we were hired to do the press. And what we did was we found, I thought to myself, we have to get in the media. And what I was saying to you, you have to talk about what people want to talk about. So we worked with all of the health editors, and we said, if there's any article you're writing about any health crisis, whether people have headaches, they're depressed, they have stomach ache, whatever the problem is, tell me what it is. And as a dumb little sidebar, that's a little call out in the article. Tell me about it, and I'll give you a juice recipe. It'll be a really funny joke. Nobody will think take it very seriously. The other strategy we used was we went to upcoming chefs and we said, look, here's a juicer. I will give this to you and you can use it. But when I tell you I need a recipe, you have one day to turn it around. And I will do everything I can to get your name included in the publicity, for the
Sure.
juicer. And so we had food articles coming out. We had health articles coming out. And one thing led to the other. And you have to be creative. You have to tie in what you're doing to what people want to do. So today, a lot of people are talking about wellness in lots of different ways. They're talking about beauty as wellness. Wellness is staying in shape, getting enough sleep. We've got to figure out what the product does for what people want to hear about.
When you take a look at the current players in the fitness studio space, I'm a big Soul Cycle advocate and participant there. I've done over 600 Soul Cycles. We've done over 500 podcasts. If I was doing them on a Soul Cycle bike, that would even be better, but I didn't. Those would be done separately. From a standpoint of that brand, as an example, it kind of caught fire and then didn't really need, traditional advertising. It was more about word of mouth and probably their own PR, and maybe they had a PR.
And PR, yeah.
Yeah. To keep a brand like that relevant and alive, during COVID, obviously all the studios were closed. So, you have to kind of reinvent yourself and have almost like a grand reopening. I'd say right now, some of the Pilates concepts, whether it's Club Pilates or Solid Core, are trending up and people are getting a great workout. A lot of the workouts with Soul Cycle, like it meets a lot of my needs from a musical standpoint, from a fitness standpoint, from like a spiritual standpoint. What are some of the techniques that you kind of use to say, look, there's a lot that this could do for people, but you got to kind of boil it down to like one or two things, whether it's like, this is like the most cost effective way to get results. This is like the best cult you can become a part of. How do you kind of help people dissect or like fine tune, like, this is what you need to say, and here's like a script that
right
kind of shortens up what you want them to know.
Figuring out what you want them to say is a combination of, Pete, I break it down. You're a numbers guy, and I break it down to an equation. The equation is this: what the media needs, what influencers want to talk about, what people want to talk about. That's kind of a constant. What we want to say about the brand, that's a constant. So to make a constant plus another constant equal another constant, there's a variable. That variable is, what are we going to say about the brand? Mm-hmm. So who are your target customers and how are we going to do it? And how are we going to get out to them? There's still a lot of local media out there. People say to me, people don't read magazines anymore. They don't read newspapers. I read, this may be TMI, but I read 8 magazines before I get out of bed in the morning. And I don't read them, in a magazine form. I'm reading them from my phone.
Right.
People are reading the same kind of traditional media that they always were, but in a different way. So if you have a local studio, why aren't you using local media? What's wrong with you? I mean, if you have people there who, are willing to talk about their workout, you should be using them. You should be collaborating with other businesses. You should be collaborating with the local celebrities, and every area has them. There's no reason for a local studio to not be getting lots of press.
One of the things I want to probe you on here is that people come up with these marketing messages. People come up with, hey, we got this new PR firm. We're working with them, and for some reason, it doesn't travel down to the front desk. Doesn't travel down to like the sales managers. It doesn't travel down to the people on the floor, and it's almost like a lack of scripting, and like mandatory. Like you represent my brand. So what's like the next frontier of saying like, look, if you're going to hire me, I was saying this to a software company that we're invested in. Like if you're going to bring us on, you have to let us do certain things, or else it's not going to be effective.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of companies think marketing is over here and sales is over there. No, are you kidding me? Marketing, it lives so that they could support sales. That's what it's all about.
Right.
So if the marketing team doesn't know what the sales team is doing, are you kidding me? And if think about it, when people are calling up after they see the article, after they see the TV segment, after they see the TikTok, after they see the YouTube, and they're calling up the gym, and the receptionist doesn't know what to be talking about. What did
Right.
we do all that for? So and the the front desk people, everyone in the organization is going to be excited when they have a PR firm. Hey, we're going to be in the news. We're going to be celebrities. Wow, this is so exciting. So you're losing the benefit of having a PR firm if you don't get everybody involved in it. And we say that right from the beginning. I mean, I literally get on and say, listen, we want to tell your sales team how to develop a nose for news. I know that sounds corny as all heck, but you got to do that to get people's attention so they realize, wait a second, if I hear about if the salesperson hears about a story, or the front desk person, or a trainer, or whatever, customers hears about it, tell it to the PR firm. There should
Yeah.
be no obstacles. This is free. It's all right. It's just fine as long as everybody knows what's going on. And you need some accountability so that there should be weekly reports, monthly reports. This
Yeah.
is all. And every 3 months, look at what you're doing.
Yeah. So are you reporting back whether that's like, hey, I've got you in this many articles, this many Yahoo News alerts?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we do every single one of our clients has celebrity endorsers, and we don't pay any of them. We're very big into getting influencers and helping influencers increase their platform. This is what we do. We have to get if we are not excited about what we do, how are we going to get the company excited about what we do? So we've got to share that excitement and share our enthusiasm.
Got it.
I client after client, every week, we demand of our clients that we want to have a meeting with you every week. Prior to the meeting, you get a written update. So no reason for it. Did you call that one? Did you do that? We did that. That's part of our job. The thing that is really important is we need that time to find out what's going on with other companies. What other things are you doing? What stories do you have? We have to, create more vision, create more substance to the story, and
Gotcha.
keep it relevant, which is, you were saying earlier, how do you keep it? I mean, to tell you the truth, I worked for some of the first companies I ever worked for, but they sold their company, they bought other ones, they hired us, they bought other ones, they hired us. I mean, that's what you have to keep relevant. You got to keep your eyes open and constantly be thinking, how can I say this in a way that people are getting it? I'm willing to change my story. I'm going to cultivate my humility and realize, hey, you know what? That totally didn't work, but let's try this. You got to
Yeah.
be the one who keeps getting back up.
One comment you made before we got onto the mic here that I think was super interesting and important is you say, every 6 months, one of our clients gets acquired. So talk about, whether you want to use names or not use names, to say like that's the ultimate success story for being able to, one, have a brand that's resonated to the point where somebody else wants to buy it, which we're in the M&A business, and there's way more people that want to sell their companies than want to actually buy a company. There's a lot of window shopping that always goes on, and only the best brands that have real foundational value, given that most of what we do is in a commodity business in the non-patented health and fitness industry
Yeah.
or wellness industry. It's not like the brand has. Somebody said to me one time as an aside, like, all this company has is a brand. I'm like, yeah, well, that's probably the most important thing they do have. So you're not a good investor for this if you don't get that. So maybe you could just give a couple of bullet points on like how much you feel good about knowing that like somebody actually paid for that brand that we helped build.
Oh my gosh, I feel really, I'm thinking of a lot of different companies right now. Very often, what happened the minute we start, because of our track record, because we're getting so much traction in this, we are on a lot of investor watch lists, and often people will start working with us, and in the first couple of months, people that they approached in the past, please buy my company, they had no interest, and now they're begging. When you think about it, I've heard all kinds of research about this too, that people go to look for a brand. What's a brand? It's being talked about in the media. It's being
Right.
talked about by other influencers. It's what people are talking about. It's what's making the news. People are proud to be affiliated with that. So you've got to get media publicity, and you have to be, sending it to investors, potential investors. And what investors tell us is, there are many things that they look for, and people go and they say, I've got a really great idea, but the retailers are saying, well, that may be a great idea, but what are you doing to get people in the store asking for your product? If you're not doing something that when somebody goes into a gym and says, wait, you don't have that equipment, oh darn, I gotta go, I want to go next door, because they do. You got to get people to want the brand. And that's publicity. And that's publicity that you're not only getting the press, but you're using it to amplifying it by giving it, national to local, traditional to social, using social media to get more traditional media, recycle, reuse, just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
I hope I'm answering your question.
No, I think that's great. Yeah, it's great. Look, we could probably talk I know we could talk for hours, but in closing here, we're going to have 5 articles that you're going to publish for us that's going to drip off after this podcast so people understand what value you bring to the table and how you kind of see through a lot of the noise on the PR and marketing side. Another thing that I just want to mention, as companies grow and you get this flywheel right between your PR, your stats, your momentum, people come to us and say, like, I want to get a growth equity multiple. And the only way you get a growth equity multiple is if you have these trends that are starting to grow exponentially to the point where people are willing to pay you for what that growth trajectory actually looks like on a bar chart or on a line chart. And they're willing to pay up because they could see where the future is, versus going into a market and trying to sell your business on any kind of slippery slope. Someone's going to say, when does this end? And it usually ends up in no deal, because the bid ask is always going to be different between what you're willing to accept and what somebody thinks they can potentially pay. So anytime you want a multiple expansion, you better have all these things in place so that the flywheel and the people and the machine is kind of engineered, to manufacture those results. So Nancy, it was great having you give some high level.
And Pete, I love what you say, and I love all the brands that you're helping and the people you're helping. A lot of friends of mine, and it's not only figuring out what the trends are. You've got to, as a marketer, you've got to create the trends. So you're doing what the mainstream wants, and you're thinking of what the people ahead of the curve are doing. So you got to be in all places.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And as you said, I think, the main thing is, like, there's got to be an authenticity and there's got to be a benefit to your product and service. And you got to figure out how you're going to tell that story. So get in touch with Nancy. Thanks for coming on. I think these are great, little, tidbits of, like, here's how you get to the success story that you want. And you need people like you with the experience to help you get there. So
yeah. We have offices in New York. We have offices in California. We're all about healthy lifestyle. And what healthy lifestyle means is expanding all the time. So there's lots of different ways to grow your business.
Go Halo or go home. Thanks for being on. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
You got it.